In one of the worst kept secrets, the XFL made it official yesterday. San Antonio will have a team. Pro football back in the Alamo City. It is the Blitz here on San Antonio Sports Star, the new 94.1 FM and AM 1250. Rudy J in for Joe Reinagel. I'm Jason Minix. The XFL, let's talk about it with Mayor Ron Nirenberg joining us now. Mr. Mayor, appreciate you taking the time. The idea of two spring leagues after we had the alliance. USFL, I know, showed some interest. So did the XFL. Why the XFL, in your mind, was that the better route for the city to go?
Well, I think the XFL brings a lot of strengths to the table that, frankly, we haven't seen before in startup leagues. And one of them, of course, being the fact that they've got management and ownership that are not, they weren't born yesterday with regard to the sports and entertainment industries. They've made their success, and they're building on that success with the launch of this league. I think there's some cachet in the cities that they've chosen. They've done their due diligence to select a really good lineup of teams to launch. And frankly, they're working in collaboration with the NFL, which will always be the upper echelon of professional football. The fact that they're positioning themselves in a sort of cooperative arrangement on player development, on scouting, on even sports medicine and performance, I think all bodes well for the future of this particular league.
Ron Nirenberg, mayor of San Antonio, joining us here on the Blitz as the XFL is coming to San Antonio. Interesting timeline, how they have put stuff out. We knew they were coming. It was leaked that, Hines Ward was going to be the coach. San Antonio was going to be the team, but nobody would say anything. And now we got to wait a while to figure out what we're going to call the team. Do you have any insight? What are we going to be called? Do you want to break any news here, Mr. Mayor?
You can call them whatever you want, as long as they're successful and they have a good product on the field.
That's such a political answer. Come on.
A lot of folks will get caught up on the name and the logo and everything, and I think all that's important. But for me, what I want to see is that we continue to make these strategic moves in the direction of becoming a bigger entity on the sports world radar. And I think that I've always said that further investment of these professional sports leagues into a city is a trailing indicator of economic prosperity, and it's also a forecaster of what's to come. And so San Antonio, this is a step, a significant step, but it is an important step for us to be on that radar, and for us to be what I consider ourselves, which is an NFL team, NFL city in the making.
You know what? You stole my thunder, Mayor, because when these things happen, it always brings out I told y'all we can support an NFL team, and everybody has their theories on why we can, and then there's the guys that have their theories on why we can't. Where do you come out on that, Mayor?
Well, I think we have to progress to a level in which a team can sustain itself. And unfortunately, for a lot of our history, we just haven't had the financial base here in the city to support multiple professional franchises, certainly within the NFL. And so I think as those prospects change, we're going to continue to be at the top of the list when sports leagues look to expand or speculate about what's going to happen next. There are some unique qualities and advantages that this market has, primarily the fact that we continually are undersold in terms of the expanse of the San Antonio market with regard to entertainment and sports. This is not a San Antonio MSA community. You can see it in the fans that come out to games when we host for soccer or whatever. it relates to strategic development within the sports industry in San Antonio, we made important relationships. The folks that were involved in the alliance, the management of the league was a little bit different, but they had a lot of pro quality, in fact, NFL folks that were involved. And so we made those relationships, and we got on their radar, and we turned a lot of heads in the process. And that's all part of the process, I believe, in marching us towards what we ultimately want to be, which is a city that has multiple professional sports leagues represented. And so, the experience was a little bittersweet. Obviously, the way it ended, it was a bit of a hostile takeover, in my view. But where we go now, I think that, obviously with the XFL, there's a lot of advantages and strengths that they bring to the table that we haven't seen before in startup leagues. So I'm excited by that. We always enter it with, as a collaborative partner, but we also want to make sure that we protect our community and our taxpayers. And this is a pretty standard deal. This really involves the league and the team in the league making use of the Alamo Dome and our facilities. But beyond that, they want to be successful. They want to invest themselves in San Antonio. We want them to feel like they're part of the community. We want our city to be proud of the team that's representing them on the field. And so all of that came together, and I'm quite excited by the announcement yesterday.
I am too. And you mentioned, the Alamo Dome facilities and all that, based on the alliance, do you get payment in advance for like renting the dome?
Well, that's all part of the attorney's agreements. Those are standard agreements, and I, unfortunately don't have the details in front of me, but I will tell you that there is rent coming to the city for the use of the dome. There's concessions that are shared among the parties. Those details will be worked out by the attorneys. But again, this is a deal that's all upside in my view for the city of San Antonio, for our community, for football fans, and frankly for the league, because they see, and I heard this loud and clear directly from the league officials, they see San Antonio as a foundation stone for the future success of this league. They know what they're getting with San Antonio. There's no surprises here. They're going to get some excited football fans. They're going to get a growing market that, again, extends far beyond our borders. And, they're going to probably see some of the best quality football that the XFL produces because they're doing it right here in South Texas.
I agree with everything you're saying, Mayor, but what do you say then to the San Antonio sports fan that feels like there's a lot of flirting going on with Austin and the Spurs? Because I think we don't need it. We're fine on our own, but what do you say to the guy that feels like, the Spurs are doing a lot of flirting with Austin and I don't feel is necessary?
Yeah, well, so let's look at it this way. The Spurs, to be successful, need to continue to grow their audience. And they have been strategically doing that in Mexico. In fact, we've accompanied them to do that in Mexico. They want to be Mexico's team. And I think we should applaud that. Okay. Frankly, the San Antonio Spurs, for the better part of the early 2000s, were the world's team. That's how the world got to know the NBA. And so they have always been a very forward-looking franchise. I will tell you this, the Holt family would not be involved in the San Antonio Spurs if it weren't for bringing them to San Antonio. The reason why the Holt family got involved in the Spurs was to keep them here in San Antonio as a San Antonio entity. And while we might have folks in Austin and other parts cheer on the Spurs and occasionally see a game here and there, it's not going to replace the fact that these are the San Antonio Spurs. And, it's some growing pains there. We know what's happening in Austin. There's, virtually making a mint on some of the elements of business that are happening there. But San Antonio has always marched to its own drummer. We are establishing a foundation and an economic prosperity, not for short bursts and boom and bust times, but for the long run. And San Antonio's authenticity in that regard is something that every franchise that establishes itself would want to be a part of.
Absolutely. Mayor Ron Nirenberg joining us here on the Blitz. As we're talking sports. It's been a long time since we've had you on, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I know we've got all the issues and the concern that the Spurs at the flirtation in Austin that Rudy just brought up, but we haven't talked baseball in a while. Now we're getting XFL. So let's do a little bit. Do you mind? Any update on baseball?
Which part of baseball?
Which part do you want to talk about?
What they're not doing right now. So yeah, you're probably referring to the mission's pursuit of a new ballpark.
Correct.
It's not new. What I will say, what is new about this is a couple things. Number one, there's been a massive realignment, a total realignment of the minor leagues with regard to its relationship with the majors. There are now license agreements where each major league team has, I believe, 3 minor league teams. That's it. It's not sort of a free-for-all. So there's a very structured professional approach to the minor leagues. And I think the majors are getting much more involved. They are, frankly, getting involved in the standards of each of these ballparks. So it is true that the Wolf Stadium, as it sits today, does not meet the minimum standards. And so the major leagues is putting forth, in order to keep teams in communities, they need to have certain facilities up to that level. And so the Missions franchise and ownership are working on that. We are, ready and willing to listen to proposals. There's nothing concrete at this point, but there's a lot of speculation, and there's work being done, on the part of baseball in town to make sure that we can have the Missions here for the long run.
And we certainly want that. But the way I asked the question, your response, is there a baseball question that I should be asking you that I might not be aware of?
Right now, I mean, the appropriate question is, will the Missions remain in San Antonio? And my answer to that is yes. They're one of the most important, they're one of the oldest professional sports teams in the league, in the city, in our history.
Yep.
Dating back 100 plus years. And so the history and tradition of the San Antonio Missions is not lost on any of us. So we want to make sure they're successful. I think there's a lot of things happening in and around the major leagues and with the minor system, and the need for new stadiums that I expect that those conversations will pick up. There's not a whole lot that happens, frankly, during the major league season. A lot of it takes place during the off season, but I expect there's a lot of conversations taking place, and we'll be a part of them when it's appropriate time.
Well, I know. I was just wondering, maybe because when you see 14 people at a game in Oakland, maybe they are looking for a new home that could be here.
Well, and frankly, that's where us keeping a broader view and a sort of strategic approach to this is important. People have been for years, myself included, upset that San Antonio doesn't have the connectivity at its airport. Why we can't fly to London and Germany and all these other places that we would love to fly out of our own backyard to. And the truth of the matter is, the reason why that is not happening is because there's not a market for it. As more people demand those flights, as more businesses arrive to support those flights, we're going to start getting those flights. Same thing is true about professional sports franchises. It is a business after all. And in order to support professional teams, those owners want to see suites sold. They want to see sponsors there. They want to see the seats filled. And while we can do the seats, historically, San Antonio hasn't had the broad-based financial support to have multiple professional sports franchises be successful for the long haul. I will say this. There isn't a city in the country that I would put on a better trajectory than San Antonio in that regard. So I think our prospects are changing. They're changing dramatically. They're changing because, frankly, our community has supported investment in itself. It's supporting, helping its neighbors. We want to make sure that people have access to good quality education so that more good quality jobs can be created here in San Antonio. And all that is part of the foundation of us growing our profile in professional sports. And it is happening. It is happening. If you take a snapshot, it doesn't look like things are moving, but if you take a longer view, you can see things are changing for the much better here in San Antonio as it relates to our overall economy, but also our prospects as it relates to professional sports.
And of course, getting the XFL team, which is why you're on today, because that was announced yesterday that the XFL is coming to San Antonio. Mayor Ron Nirenberg, you're on the Blitz. One final question, Mr. Mayor. When you think about the XFL coming to San Antonio, and as excited as fans are. And heck, I just realized I'm wearing an old Commander shirt today. You know, I love spring football and the involvement there, and I know what they did to get involved in the community. I remember the San Antonio Talons in the Arena League and what they did to get involved in the community. My only concern with the XFL as it sits right now is the guys and all 8 teams, everybody's going to be in Dallas living and training, and they'll come to San Antonio for the games in the Dome. But it's like 2 road teams. What has the XFL told you that they're going to do to be involved in the San Antonio community?
Right now, so I'll say this, Jason, that right now it's all speculation, but they have already made statements to, indicate that they don't want to run the league in the way, the USFL has done, where it's just one city doing everything. Now, there are a couple things that I'd say about that. And again, there's been no direct conversations I've had with regard to that kind of arrangement with the league. They do want to be a local presence. So, just flying in for the game and flying out, I don't think that that's going to be how the XFL is arranged. But they do have 3 teams in Texas, and the league is going to be based in Arlington. And frankly, if part of our hope for the XFL is that they have some longevity and build success on success, we also want them to be smart business people. And so, we want to make sure that the team knows our community, that our neighbors, our community knows the players, and the players get to know our community. And so if those opportunities are there and they execute on that, which frankly they have indicated they want to do that, they're going to run it in a smart way. If those opportunities are there, by all means, run it as a smart business so we can have more than just a couple of years under our belt. We can start to see this team get some longevity and create a tradition here in San Antonio. I hope that they can do that. I think they are very savvy business people. Frankly, they are some of the most successful names in the entertainment and sports world. I think they know very well how important it is for a team to get a local cachet, to get a local presence, and I expect them to execute on that.
Appreciate it. Mr. Mayor, I know it's a busy day for you. What did you have the CPS board meeting earlier today? I think this is a lot more fun to talk sports, isn't it?
It certainly is. Always ready and willing to talk sports with you guys. But I think things are looking up for sports here in San Antonio. Absolutely. And let's not forget, in just a month, we're going to get to start seeing UTSA round 2. We're going to watch them continue to make their mark on the NCAA world as well. So there's a lot to cheer about, not just professional. Looking forward to seeing the Roadrunners, the Cardinals, and even the Trinity Tigers play again after some successful seasons.
Absolutely. Mayor Ron Nirenberg, I know it's always busy for you. Appreciate you taking some time with us this afternoon, and congrats on getting the XFL to San Antonio.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys, and congrats to the whole community. This is all for us.
Appreciate it. Mayor Ron Nirenberg here on the Blitz as the XFL is coming to San Antonio.
I'm down. I'm excited as he is. I'm glad to know he's excited as well. Learn some things about the Missions Stadium or whatever you want to call it. Again, I don't pay attention to minor league baseball, so I didn't know that it was that outdated, but I've heard this.
Oh, yeah. I've
heard this going around.
It's been that way for a while. What do you guys think of the XFL? 210-656-ESPN, 656-3776. We'll take your calls as we continue here on the Blitz.